faithful. It's another Victory Monday. The 49ers keep proving that no matter who's out, this team knows how to rise up and get it done. Except it seems like we've got more injuries to account for, and they're going to have to do it yet again. We're going to talk about the latest updates in terms of the injury news, as well as talking about the greatest performances of the Week 7 matchup. We'll crown 49K Player of the Week on today's 49K Pod.
You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, October 20th. And it is, like I said, a Victory Monday, although we did get some news and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm numb again. But before we get to that, Weston, just tell me how you feeling like after yesterday's win.
I feel fantastic. It's Victory Monday. I thought the 49ers matched up well against the Falcons, but we all saw on a national spotlight like what they did to the Buffalo Bills, right? And all it takes is one game for team to get hot where our injuries just continued to mount. And this was going to be the first experiment without, Fred Warner leading the defense against a very high-powered offense so far through, the previous 6 weeks in the football season. So I feel good. I feel, and we'll talk more about this, but it's like the 49ers are a different team. Every football team is a different team from year to year to year. But this team has me like latched on with like the won't quit, won't give up, taking everything down to the wire mentality versus trying to have them like mopped up by halftime, and like you see it in the play calling, you see it in the fight of the team. But 5-2, first place in the NFC West, sitting right up there at the top of the NFC. As we're approaching halfway through the season, even given all of the craziness that this team has experienced just on the injury front, I'm not sure I had them at 5-2 at this point in the season as a healthy football team, let alone like what they've fought through. So yeah, I feel great. But like you said, you're a 49er fan. I'm a 49er fan. There is no victory without defeat right directly behind it in some capacity. We can't have nice things.
And by that, Weston is talking about the latest injury updates that we got from Kyle Shanahan, literally, within the last hour, as Kyle spoke with the media. So first things first, Bryce Huff, who had a spectacular game yesterday against the Falcons, maybe his best game with the 49ers of the season, out with the hamstring injury for a couple of weeks, according to Kyle Shanahan. And like I said, this feels like a massive blow because it just felt like this was the first game since Nick Bosa, exited with his injury and, he's not going to be back this year. This is the first game where it felt like the 49ers had a pass rush since that injury. And, Bryce Huff was a big contributor to that this week, right? And he's been awesome. He's looked great. He looks very quick off that edge. And one of the sacks he got was one of the fastest of this young season in the entire league. I think it's like the 12th fastest in the league at 2.6 seconds. So, Huff was getting it done and he was as advertised for this 49ers team, but now going to be out a couple of weeks. You add this along with everything else that this poor defense is going through. I mean, it's adding up. It's adding up. And, to kind of piggyback off of what you were just saying there, Weston, it's like, I think we were all very impressed with the way that this 49ers defense played yesterday, just because it just seemed like it was in the face of adversity. It was a lot of guys having to step up and getting thrust into larger roles in which, hey, no pressure, right? But we're going to play on this primetime game. one the best running back in the league in Bijan Robinson, and hey, Chase Lucas, like you're going to guard Drake London, one of the better wide receivers in the game on short notice, So there's just a lot, I think, happening for this defense. They took it all in stride. I think they were all up for the challenge. And it just like, I think if the team hears about this injury, and they already have, obviously, but like I think within that locker room, it's just like, all right,
got you, fam.
Next man up. Because that's what it's been. That's what it's been all year, right? So it's like, what else can they do but just suck it up and go back out there and play their best football that they can muster up? And yesterday, that was enough. It was enough, and it looked good, Weston. So, I feel good about that, But, man, as a 49er fan right now, I'm reeling. When is it going to stop with these injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball? I guess, the offense has had their fair share as well, especially in the, receiver group. But, man, it just keeps on mounting, and it doesn't seem to – again, it was kind of like what we were talking about in training camp. It was like one injury after another, some guys coming back, but not enough. There were more guys exiting with injuries than there were coming back from injury. Kind of feels like a similar situation for the 49ers right now, heading into, now week 8. So, yeah, it's a tough blow. But your reaction to the Bryce Huff news, were you just as numb as I was?
Yeah, I'm like not even phased, but let's be honest, like, it's been a really cool element of the story of how is this team 5-2 sitting in the top of their division when they literally just are like trotting out a JV squad at this point compared to what the roster was supposed to look like. And that's not meant to knock any of the players' capabilities. It's just not the plan, right? Like that's never the plan. And I do think that there's this cute element to like all these guys stepping up and everybody playing their part and rallying around it. But the hits can't keep coming, right? Eventually, there's going to be legitimately just a depleted roster. Like, do you even have enough bodies to go out there week to week that are on the team right now? And I do think these players are human. And at one point, they're going to be like, for real? Like, come on, like we're doing everything right. We're playing our hardest. We're playing our hearts out. Like they're playing ultimate complementary football on both sides of the ball right now. But like, there's got to be a point where even they're like, well, really? Like another one where it has to start. There's going to be a point in time, Steph, where it's going to be less about like, let's just pick each other up. And there's going to be a point in time where they're like, they're almost feeling bad for themselves. And that's when it's going to become a problem. And these little ones that are happening right now, like that could start to be the tip of the iceberg of where the problem is really coming from.
Which, honestly, I thought that was going to be the Fred Warner injury that would have them feeling that way and, down on themselves. And, I guess it's just not our year. But, like I said, like they surprised me. They surprised, I'm sure, most of us, on Sunday when they put up the effort that they did, even without Fred Warner in there. So that's why I'm like, in some way, to lose your best defensive player, and not just like, again, we last week we talked about Fred's impact goes far beyond just the defense. I mean, he is the leader, one of the leaders of this team, and has been such for however many years, he's been on the team, it feels like in some cases. So I think having gone through that, it's almost like, I mean, Bryce Huff out a couple weeks, like, okay, you can't hurt me anymore. Like, but yeah, I agree. Like from the product on the field standpoint, I do think there is a certain point where if it continues to happen that, they're having to play through all these different injuries and, you're playing a preseason squad out there, it's that will feel very difficult to overcome. And we're close. I mean, we're close.
I don't know if we can get like you're as close to touching the sun without touching the sun right now that like this team could. They're playing with fire.
Yeah.
on the injury front, like I said, it's cute, it's fun, it's super exciting, but this is still the National Football League. Like, forget it, it's still professional sports in any capacity. Like, you need your cream of the crop to be out there to really compete. But it's been a heck of a lot of fun watching. I think what's so cool about it, Steph, is like I think we take for granted, and you hear me say it all the time, how like this is the only professional sport, in my opinion, where coaching actually matters. And you are literally seeing this firsthand play out for the team that you root for, because like their footprint is just there, like this is like that was as much as a coach's victory as it was a player's victory. And you're hearing the players talk about the preparation and the coaching and those things far more than you hear any other team talking about it. Like, look, just use Chase Lucas as an example, right? Like, I saw that play. I knew that play was coming. The only reason why I saw that play is because the defensive coordinator put that exact play in front of me during the week and said, this is going to happen. Lo and behold, it happens on a 4th down, and light bulb goes off for the player as he's seeing his opponent go in motion across the formation. That's coaching. That is coaching at its finest, to the minute detail. For one play out of 70 offensive snaps in the biggest moment of the game, your guy was ready. That's not Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball left-handed or no look, where the player's got to make the play, but the player is in the prime optimal spot to make the play because the light bulb goes off in their head because the coach literally had them prepared. And there are countless examples around this league right now where players are not talking about how their coaches had them prepared. Quite the opposite is what you're seeing. So it's, in that regard, it's awesome. You're seeing why coaches get paid too. And you know what? Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, they get all the credit, but it's just as much the position coach. Like, this is a building belief right now. Like, this team believes.
Yeah, and you see how far that's going for the 49ers right now. It's taking them it's doing a lot for them as far as the coaching. And Christian McCaffrey after the game kind of praised the coaching as well, and just everything that they're playing through right now, all the adversity. He of course credits the coaching, but said it's not like that everywhere. And a guy who came from the Carolina Panthers probably knows a thing or two about bad coaching. Sure. But I think we take that for granted a lot of the time. There's a lot of people within this fan base who have wanted Kyle Shanahan fired multiple times throughout the course of his tenure as 49ers head coach. And you look at the job that he's putting together this year, him and Robert Saleh, it's a collective, effort there. But I mean, you just got to praise them for what they're doing and how they're still keeping the light on with this team, when it could be so easy to just mail it in and throw in the towel mentally, and that would of course translate onto the field in a negative way. But you're not seeing that at all with this team, and that's a 180 difference from last season. Let's continue to look at the rest of these injuries here. And as we were talking, I was updating a few more. Yeah. Well, it was we were getting updates on players who were already hurt. So I just saw some of those tweets come in, so I just added them here. But one of the newer injuries as well that happened yesterday was center Jake Brendel, who also suffered a hamstring injury. He's going to be out a couple weeks as well. Matt Hennessy, of course, filled in his place, and I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit more because he was one of the guys of the many guys who kind of stepped in and stepped up, on spot duty in this game, and he looked pretty good. So I think 49er fans are okay with however long Jake Brendel needs to get to 100%. And then maybe we could have the discussion of, should Brendel even get his job back? I've seen people already having that discussion and closing the door on Brendel entirely. But from the 49ers standpoint, I don't, they like Jake Brendel. I'm not ready to go completely on that side yet. But so Brendel is going to miss a couple weeks. Ronaldo Green, who exited this game with a toe injury. I know you and me, all of us were thinking toe injury. Oh God, let it please not be turf toe. Well, Kyle Shanahan did say it is not a turf toe injury for Ronaldo Green. He's going to be day to day. That's a good sign. Probably has a chance to play next week against the Texans in week 8. Cornerback Upton Stout, who was inactive for this game with an ankle injury. That was an injury he suffered late in the week at practice. He's going to be monitored throughout this week, as will be Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, Yetur Gross-Matos, those guys who have been dealing with their injuries now for some time now. And then Kyle did also say that Spencer Burford has a chance to have his practice window opened this week. He's on injured reserve. So there's someone coming back. Hey, but
sure
we'll wait and see on the others. But yeah, let me get to a couple of these comments. You guys had some good ones while we were talking here. So Vish Bell says, I know we have to wait and see, but I don't think it's fair to wait. More injuries happen, chances for losses. I would have traded for Bradley Chubb, or something immediately after Bosa injury. I was okay with the 49ers waiting. And in fact, Kyle Shanahan was asked about a trade for a defensive end once again today. And Kyle Shanahan said that, the Bryce Huff injury doesn't necessarily increase their urgency for making a trade happen at all. So I think they're kind of in the realm of, if something happens within, or if a player is available within the specific parameters that we want, then hell yeah, let's do it. But if not, nah, we're okay not going all in. At least every time Kyle Shanahan talks about it, that's the impression that I get from him. Slightly different when you hear John Lynch, but still, that's kind of my thought. Weston, what thoughts do you have on 49ers potentially trading for someone? Are you super gung-ho about it, or you're just man, if it happens, it happens?
I'm gung-ho about it, but I'm probably on a drastically different side of the spectrum than a lot of the fan base. I think a lot of the fan base still want the splashy, replace Nick Bosa's presence type name. I think just give it. And once upon a time, that felt really comforting to wish for that, right? Hey, there's a possibility this team's competing. There are teams that have some high-profile players that are not competing right now that would benefit from a trade or something along those lines. But with this injury news that just stacks and stacks and stacks, I would be beside myself if they made this massive splash move and then just watch that person get hurt, right? And the big name people that you see floated out there, the big name stuff, the stars, they're nicked up too. It's why am I trading for somebody who's already banged up? I think I'm of the school of thought of can you go find 2 or 3 mid guys right now? Bodies to keep the rotation going.
Yeah.
If you're going to make that move, but I do. So I am gung-ho about it because I just feel the way the first 7 weeks have Steph, they've been in every game. They've been in every game. This team could just as easily be 1-6 or 7-0. You know what I mean? With where they are, but they've been in every football game that is played this season. I think you need to reward that in some capacity, right? I think you need to look at, even with all the injuries and everything else, I think as John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, you got to look at it damn, man, the NFL feels pretty open right now. We just kind of got to get to the dance and just let these guys play with the chip on their shoulder, think we'll be better, think we'll be more healthy. So I'm gung-ho about making a move, but it needs to be multiple moves, right? I don't think we're in a state right now where even the single individual moves the needle, you know. And I don't think the single individuals that the Max Crosbys, the Trey Hendricksons of the world, like, I don't think those guys are coming. I don't think those teams are parting with those players, regardless of what their situation is. So, you know, do you go raid the Jets roster? Do you go raid the Titans roster? I think you just need to find some again, mid-tier bodies that would make sense. But it's funny because you bring up Kyle Shanahan and how his, like, he just doesn't seem to have this urgency around making the moves. And what's so crazy to me is I think in the years that Kyle Shanahan has been the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, this is the most calm I've seen him. And this team is like a sneeze away from somebody like blowing out a rib in a back and can't play. And like, you know, it's just wild, the state of the team. And I think he seems pretty confident and pretty happy with where they sit right now.
I think so too. And it's funny because, like, I think we all kind of feel that way in some way, because going into the season, I think we all thought this was just going to be a year where, hey, let's just like see what we have with like a lot of these young guys, right? And, you know, give it our best shot and see what happens. And lo and behold, you're 6-2. And not just that, not just with young guys, you're 6-2. Or sorry, 5-2. I keep saying 6-2. 5-2. I did that. Yeah, I'm manifesting another win. I did that on my post game show yesterday, so apologies there for anyone who heard that. So 5-2. Now you're sitting 5-2, and you're not just doing that with a young roster or young defense. You're doing that with a young defense and several key players missing. So hell yeah, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm feeling damn good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling really good about, you know, what's going on with this team. And, you know, it was interesting because, and I cited this as well in my post game, but in the lead up to this game, Kyle Shanahan did a sit-down interview with Matt Mayoko for NBC Sports Authentic. And, you know, he talked about how he was down and out watching the film from the Bucs game the first time he watched it, just sad about Fred Warner going down. And then he was like, you know what, you know, I need to kind of watch this again. And he decided to watch it from a different standpoint and, you know, just thinking about the young guys and how they performed. So then the second time around, he really focused on them. And his takeaway was that these guys looked pretty good. Like they fought and they kept the thing afloat for as long as they did in that game. I mean, we saw it, right? There were some good things certainly to take away from it. So I think even he kind of went through the same stages of grief maybe that we did. And he also, at the end of it, came away with, you know what? Like, we might just be okay. Like, even if we don't win these games, we're going to put a good product on the field. And, you know, we're going to feel good about the effort that we're putting forth. And, you know, again, lo and behold, you're 5-2. You come out winning this game against the Falcons with all of that. And it just proves that he's right. Like, he was right to think that way. And it just feels like the culture of this team, every guy in that locker room has just such a good head on their shoulders. Tatum Bethune, for example, what a kid. Like, man. So let's get back to this game, Weston. I mean, yeah, you had Tatum Bethune starting. He's going to be starting for the rest of the season in place of, well, let's knock on wood for that. That's no given either. Let me not jinx the kid. But he's in line to start the rest of this season at the Mike linebacker spot, being the vocal leader of that defense, calling the defense on the field. That's a big responsibility for anybody, much less a second year, you know, player on this team. But just like anytime you heard him talk, even in the lead up to this game, you're like, okay, like I'm liking the energy you're bringing. Like I'm feeling a vibe here. He's confident. He knows who he is. He's not trying to be Fred. He's going to go out there and be himself and lead this team the way he knows how to. And he looked really good. He looked really good in this game. Just looked like he belonged. Looked like he did his homework for the week. Did some film study. He was piercing through traffic, through defensive lines to get through to several tackles in this game. That's exactly the type of performance that you hoped for and needed from Tatum Bethune in this game. Just one of many guys who had to step in and step up, and he did that.
Yeah. So I've since the game, I've spent a lot of time just around my own thoughts on Tatum Bethune. And here's why. Because Steph, I distinctly recall our show after the weekend of the draft from last year, right? And gushing about the two FSU players that they took in Renardo Green and Tatum Bethune. And I told you I've just watched a lot more Florida State games than a lot, right? So it was happenstance, right? Like it wasn't like I was pounding the table to take Tatum Bethune when they did in the 7th round, whatever. But I've always said good football player. But even last week, so I'll take a half a victory lap. Being right that this guy is a really good and instinctual football player and has a nose for finding the ball. I will pause because last week on your show, and why I'm saying half a lap, because last week on your show, I even said, and this is where coaching comes into play. I said, if you are thinking that Tatum Bethune you're just going to insert him into Fred Warner's spot and ask him to do the same things that Fred Warner did for this defense, you are going to be severely disappointed. And a lot of that is because of speed, right? There's a difference between Fred Warner and Tatum Bethune sideline to sideline. Like there's a drastic difference. And Fred Warner eats up the middle of the field in coverage and with his jumping ability and his just instinct for the football. Tatum Bethune is not that guy. Enter Robert Saleh into the equation, who understands in its entirety what you just said. We're going to ask Tatum Bethune to be Tatum Bethune, and we're going to call the defense around that. So that means responsibilities for other players are going to also change, right? And the defense is going to look a little bit differently. Past defensive coordinators, the defensive coordinator that drafted Tatum Bethune would make the mistake of just saying, we're going to rip and replace. Tatum Bethune, you now play Fred Warner's position. You call the defense. We need you to do everything. Clearly, there's going to be a drop-off in performance. Robert Saleh put not just Tatum Bethune, but 10 other defensive players, well, I'll even say 12 other defensive players based on rotation in the optimal spots to perform to the best of their abilities. And you got to see firsthand what Tatum does really well. He can stop the hell out of the run. If the running game is in between the tackles, he's going to fill a gap. He's going to fill it well, and he's going to come with bad intentions. He's a very heady guy, very instinctual guy, but you can also send him after the quarterback, right? And they did quite a bit of that in terms of just on stunts and things of that nature. And if you can get that, you're going to get a lot of production out of the current number 48 on this roster. And it looked really good. And it looked really promising against a good offense that has a ton of talent at the skilled positions, from tight end to wide receiver, multiple running backs on this team. And he played, obviously, his best football. It's our first glimpse at a full game of Tatum Bethune since he's been drafted. But it gave fans and coaches alike a lot of confidence walking out of there. Like, did the 49ers just do that? Did they just find another linebacker to fit on this defense? And I'd say yes, but I also would say this is just the savviness of Robert Saleh and why he is so critical to the performance of this defense. Not just being a fiery guy and a passionate guy, but a super cerebral coordinator that understands the limitations and the abilities of his players to put them in the prime spot. And wow, he flourished. He flourished in week 1 under Robert Saleh. It looked really, really good, and he looked like he's been doing it for 5-6 years in the league, not 5-6 minutes.
Yeah, really impressive stuff. And I think you're right about just Robert Saleh being able to adjust in such a short amount of time to the loss of Fred Warner. I mean, my goodness. And we knew it was going to be tough because coming into town, Bijan Robinson, like we saw what he did against the Bills. We were like, my God, like the 49ers going to get ran the F over. Like we see 200 plus all-purpose yards for Bijan Robinson in his future with the state of the 49ers without Fred Warner. And you're asking for Robert Saleh and this defense to do so much in just 1 week to be able to stop him. Well, guess what? They did it. They held him to just 40 rushing yards. I mean, wow. Like
40 rushing yards.
And what you say is right, because it wasn't just the Tatum Bethune show and him, stopping everything. You saw every time Bijan got that ball, it was that swarm mentality. Everyone immediately getting to the ball carrier. That, I think, was the biggest difference in this game defensively, and it got to a point where the Falcons had to go away from the run entirely in this game. That, like, main point of defending the Falcons executed, and they did it early in this game, you know, so they were making a statement from the get-go. You're not going to be able to run on us, and that's crazy. That's great. Like, I still can't wrap my head around it that this defense did that. Well, we talked about Tatum Bethune. He's one of the guys that filled in and for Fred, of course, and then just had a larger role. A couple other guys that filled in, Upton Stout, like I said, inactive. So Chase Lucas on short notice had to start as the nickel corner in this game. And, you think any other week, like, okay, like that's a challenge. You knew you were going to start maybe just a few days before the game, maybe even right before game time, because Upton Stout did try to work out before the game. It seemed like it was a game time decision. But now you have to guard Drake London, right? Like that's a tough ask right there for Chase Lucas. I thought he did a good job. Another guy, we talked about Matt Hennessy. He's someone who filled in, right? And he did an admirable job as well. So you just see in many spots, guys coming in and stepping up. Even Tatum Bethune had to exit on a drive, and missed some snaps. And you see Curtis Robinson in there, who didn't even have a helmet with a speaker in it to even hear the calls from Robert Saleh. So he had to improvise on the field for a number of snaps and just use hand signals to communicate with Saleh on the sideline and then relay that back to the team. I mean, this was a masterclass in next man up, through and through. This entire team, I'm just so impressed. It wasn't just on one side of the ball either. It's the mentality that this team possesses, and it's just very impressive. And I'm not going to waste any time, Weston. I know we probably have a large number of players to nominate, and I'm just going to go ahead because we were just talking about him. I'm going to go ahead and just say Tatum Bethune, because I think we kind of said everything that we wanted to say about him. I'll just, add the energy that he brought was much appreciated. Allowed just 2 catches for 14 yards in coverage. He had one pressure, like you said, he was getting involvement as a blitzer as well. He had that one, I think he had one that would have been a sack in which he completely annihilated Bijan Robinson to get to Penix. And it was too bad that was called back by the Lenore penalty, but what an effort. I mean, he looked pretty good right there. He had 10 tackles according to ESPN, 4 run stops according to PFF. So he looked good. I think they'll be okay with him.
Yeah, I would say take all the stats off the table because they were good. They were good. And the film looks good. I think the biggest and the most impressive thing for me is just the immediate trust provided to him. Green dot on the helmet. The communicator of the defense, bringing in these plays. That's where he's going to be asked to be, Fred Warner, in making sure everybody, know what's so great about Fred is he knows what all 11 players are responsible for on every single play call. And that allows him, with his God-given ability, to overcompensate from time to time and make spectacular instinctual plays. But Tatum Bethune is going to, because he is you hear him in the interviews. He's a very intelligent football player. He's a very good and strong communicator. He's going to be asked to be that. And for it to be his first time doing it on the brightest of stages on Sunday Night Football, where it's not even Monday Night Football anymore because you're not the only game in town apparently on Monday Night Football with this multiple games a week nonsense.
Make it stop.
Yeah, please, God. Like on the biggest of stages, they asked to do that, and he did it well, very well. Like this defense was not often out of place in this game. They were 11 players just seemed to be like Johnny on the spot. You said all the statistical things. Yes, the tape is going to look great if you go back and run and look at what Bethune did. But I think more importantly, he can handle the sideline to field communication, and that's what's going to matter most. Because what's so cool about this team, Steph, is like, all right, when you have superstars are expected to do superstar things, right? And they're expected to pick up for the lack of play for other players. Now the message is really simple. Guys, just go do your job. Don't worry about anything else. Just go do your job. Just play the game within your responsibilities. And Tatum Bethune is going to be the captain to say, these are the responsibilities. This is what's being shelled out. But I think in some ways that simplifies what you're trying to do. It's just like, this is your job on this play call. This is the assignment. Just go do that. Not, hey, we're down 3 and we need a turnover. Fred Warner's got to punch it out. No, just execute the play called. And sometimes that looks better than a bunch of superstars playing Wild Wild West football, trying to figure out. And I think that's what's really cool to watch. Tatum Bethune, it was awesome. It honestly, like, it's hard not to gush at how it looked in week 1 of the new experiment.
And you can imagine he's only going to get better, with the more reps that he gets. So excited to watch his growth and, for the rest of the season. And it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Who did you want to nominate?
I can't wait to nominate this person. And it's so obvious, but there's so many reasons we need to talk about it. Steph. Of course it is Christian McCaffrey. Like, of course it is. 24 carries, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground for a team that didn't have any rushing touchdowns, right? Like, and he gets his first and his second this week. Another 7 catches for 72 yards. Let's not talk about the most important one on that 3rd and long when he's 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage, lined out left, and was asking to come off the field. And Kyle Shanahan was like, absolutely freaking not. You are not coming off the field in this particular instance. Like, what's so great about this is, like, Steph, there's been 2 sides of this argument all year. Christian McCaffrey's lost a step. He's not the guy. And then there's guys that are saying, no, he's still explosive. The run game has just been suffering. The offensive line play has been poor. No George Kittle, who's arguably their best offensive lineman, in the lineup, creating space and doing those things, especially on the outside run. This was all done between the tackles, right? I think he had
a lot of power,
90-something yards rushing between the tackles on your typical counters and gaps and things of that nature. But the burst was there. And why did we get to see the burst? Oh, because he wasn't being hit behind the line of scrimmage every single time. Like, is Christian McCaffrey 23-year-old Christian McCaffrey? Of course he is not. But how dare you sit there and say he doesn't matter, right? And he's not explosive, because we saw what it looks like when he's got a little bit of space and a tiny gap. And my God, is he the most important piece of this football team right now? Not just offensively, defensively as well, because if he can run the football, he can keep the defense off the field and can tire out there. There's so much that goes into this. Christian McCaffrey, hell of a game on the big stage against the guy that you trained with all season that you know is going to be spoken about in the same breath that the way you've been spoken about for years. It was hard to not feel really, really good for Christian McCaffrey after that game, because he did it the way he's done it week in and week out running the ball, catching the ball. A lot of touches. That's going to be the story of the year for this offense is Christian McCaffrey getting a lot of touches. But you can't – what was 3 yards a carry was almost 5.5 yards a carry in this particular game. And granted, the interior defensive line of the Atlanta Falcons is definitely their weak spot. But again, good coaching. We're going to exploit it. We're going to do it. We have the guys to do it. But I would also argue that the interior of our offensive line is the weakest part of our offense. So it was like weakness against weakness. Play calling came in. Christian McCaffrey, just a hell of a football game, and probably the one that he has been most in search for, even though he's been so significant to this offense. The stats finally aligned with like the touches. And I think he needed it as bad as we all needed the reminder that like this guy is still him. You know what I mean? Like he's still him.
Yeah, and he did have his first rushing touchdown last week, but now he has 3. Now he has 3 on the season in 2 weeks. So he's making up for lost time, most definitely. And the 49ers are going to continue to feed him because he's making this thing run, like, pretty much. And he accounted for 62% of the 49ers scrimmage yards yesterday, if that tells you anything. I mean, even in the games where the run was not working for this team, we saw how much involvement he had, how he was basically the leading receiver, or the second leading receiver. I guess he can't be the second leading receiver. The receiver with second most targets on this team. Yesterday, he was the leading receiver with 72 receiving yards through the air, and on the runs. And you said it, like a lot of runs in between the tackles. 109 of his 129 yards came between the tackles on 15 runs. Like that's pretty impressive. He also had 7 explosive runs, 10 or more yards. We hadn't seen that at all, like this season, from Christian McCaffrey. And you're right, a lot of it did have to do with the blocking to this point. Clearly we saw things open up for McCaffrey in a way that they just hadn't before in previous weeks. And you see how it benefited him. And you see how that leads to burst. And McCaffrey, once he finds that open lane, taking it and accelerating. Of course, when the holes aren't there, you're going to be a little more tentative as a running back. I think that was the piece people were seeming to forget when talking about Christian McCaffrey and his struggles this season. But hopefully, Weston, this isn't just a one-game thing. The 49ers would definitely like to make this an every-week thing for Christian McCaffrey. And hopefully the days of not being able to run and averaging 3.1 yards per carry are behind them now that, Kittle's back. But, I mean, credit most definitely to Christian McCaffrey in this game. Yes, he was on my list for nominees as well. And let's see, who do we got next? So I was teetering, Weston, between Flowers and nominees. I feel like I could give a case. I can make a case for a lot of players for either, but ultimately, because there were a lot of good individual performances that I wanted to appreciate, I did feel like, okay, this week I could be a little stingy with who gets nominated, and I could dish out a lot of flowers today.
Sure.
But I'm going to give one more. Actually, I did have a couple more nominations. I'm going to go with Bryce Huff. And, this one's pretty obvious. I mean, he opened things up for the pass rush in a way we just hadn't seen since Nick Bosa went down. 5 pressures in this game, 2 sacks. One of them forced the fumble. One of them was the super quick one that I was talking about. Michael Penix didn't even know what hit him. 2 run stops in this game as well. And KP tweeted this out earlier. Bryce Huff is 9th among all edge rushers in pass rush win rate at 19.5%. For context, he's 1 spot below Jared Verse and just 3 spots away from Trey Hendrickson. it's pretty productive to me. And maybe that's part of the reason, Kyle's like, oh, I don't really feel the urgency. Of course, now Bryce Huff out for a couple weeks, but the point still stands. The 49ers finding a way to get it done. And to this point, Bryce Huff finding his groove and finding his role on this team with Robert Saleh, I think has been great. So, had to give credit to him. Like I said, I think this was the best game for the 49ers he's had in this young season. So wanted to nominate him this week.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention the forced fumble and what could have been a second forced fumble in this game too. I still don't know. Maybe it's just the bias in me, but I definitely thought the one that they called an incomplete pass, and I loved that. Who asked Collinsworth asked the question where he was like, "Can you is it a considered incomplete if you're just shot putting it out there and your arms going forward, but it's in your hand?" Because that's kind of what it felt like. That ball turned, you know what I mean? He did not.
It was close.
He had his hands on it, but when we define this thing called possession, right? I don't know if he possessed that football, but this is just to glorify the output from Bryce Huff. It came to fruition in all elements of the game, right? Not just the pressures on the quarterback. You mentioned the tackles for the loss and doing things and seemed pretty stout in the run game, or at least fortifying his spot and not getting blown off the ball and getting tossed around out there. Yeah, it looked great, but in true 49er fashion, you're on the injury report after anything looks good. So there we go. No, but it was a great game. Exactly what I think and not just him, others, but I think this game is what the defensive line needed to show that guys, just because Nick Bosa's not here doesn't mean it's okay. You can still go get the quarterback. You know what I mean?
And they were getting pressure with 4 a number of times. Saleh did dial up the blitz a few times, and that was very successful. Credit to Saleh for, perfectly timing those. But they were getting to Penix even with 4, which, man, they were having a hard time of doing sometimes even with Bosa. So I felt like it was a good step in the right direction as far as the evolvement of the defensive line this season. He's going to miss some time. Hopefully Yetur Gross-Matos can come back soon or within that time frame as well. So, they don't have to miss Huff too much, but in any case. All right. Who's your next nominee here?
We mentioned him earlier. I'm saying this with a grain of salt, but I don't want to overlook what this guy did on the field. And it's Matt Hennessy, who came in and had to come in and replace a center. And every 49er fan in the world is probably elated at the end of the game. We told you Brendel was trash that we could replace him.
Gratifying for so many fans.
With a grain of salt, because Christian McCaffrey was also doing those things and the run game still looked good while Jake Brendel was out there, right? I think let's call that what it is. But the center is a really integral and important position in Kyle Shanahan's offense. They carry a lot of responsibility on protection and just responsibility in general. Not just as simple as identifying who the Mike backer is. You know what I mean? It's the center's job to put those people in place. And I think that's why Kyle loves Jake Brendel, because he's actually a pretty headsy guy, super smart guy that is capable of doing those things. But Matt Hennessy looked the part. And I think the big part for me, I think what was it, Steph? Keep me honest here. I can pull PFF up, but I think it was a single pressure that he allowed in the game over 40-something snaps. So he played a vast majority of this football game. Never really looked like he got blown off the ball, which is hard for a center, right? You're at a disadvantage with a head down, you know what I mean, half of the time. Thought he played good football, and I think the better portion of this is is there a little depth on the line that we didn't know about? Can this guy play guard? Or is he just a center? It's got me scratching my head wondering about different abilities out of Matt Hennessy, where for the most part he was just a forgotten name, because I don't think there was any circumstance that Jake Brendel was coming out of this lineup. Mm-hmm. But as we've seen time and time and time again in the National Football League, is an injury opens up an opportunity for somebody else. And I think Matt Hennessy took advantage of his opportunity. Also, revenge game, right? For Matt Hennessy, former Falcon, revenge game, and he got to get out on the field, but thought he played a really clean game, and it didn't look like the offensive line took a step back in any capacity once he was out there kind of commanding the front. So I want to give respect where respect is due. Thought he played really, really well. And I watched twice just to make sure my eyes weren't on me. He played well.
I gotta watch the tape on this one and also check on Hennessy. But I've seen other people mention too, as they're watching, the all 22. He passed the all 22 test as well as the initial broadcast test.
Not necessarily. Drastically different things, right? Like drastically different things. And that's why the rewatch is always all 22. I made my son watch it with me because he fell asleep during the game. So, the ever coach trying to educate, not that he literally is not paying attention to anything, but he still has to sit there and watch. And he definitely passed the all 22 sniff test in my eyes. Now, there's always a detractor who will tell you otherwise, but in my eyes, he passed the test.
He passed the test, yeah. I mean, second highest pass blocking grade among 49ers offensive line from this game. As you mentioned, just the one pressure allowed. And yeah, he passed the eye test. But the one thing that stood out is like he was looking for work. And I think that's the thing, the biggest difference that I think you could see from Brendel to Hennessy is sometimes Brendel just does what he focuses on the guy he's supposed to, and once that's done, it's like, I mean, sometimes you just kind of see him standing there, like after his guys passed. He's not looking for work. Matt Hennessy just looked to be active, and it could just be like, hey, this is my opportunity to show. Like maybe he felt some of that. Maybe it was the revenge game going. I don't know, but I do know that I'm intrigued. I want to see more of it. I agree. Center holds a big responsibility. It's very easy if you're going in on spot duty to mess something up, especially on snaps. That's like the first thing or the easiest thing to mess up for a center who's going in, on spot duty in a game. I do feel like it did benefit that the quarterback was Mac Jones in this game, because those two have probably worked quite a bit throughout training camp and in practice. So I do think that they probably had good communication and good timing, chemistry, rhythm already. So there were no issues or flubs there. So, but still, that good on Hennessy for keeping his composure. Didn't see a drop off at all with the run game. That's exactly what you want to see. And yeah, I hope we see more. And I also hope this isn't like a Connor Colby situation where Colby looked good in that very first game. He played spot duty, and then he started the following week. It's like he's getting bulldozed out there. But I think Hennessy's a veteran, right? So I don't think that'll be the case with him. And let's see what he does. Let's see what he does for as long as Brendel's going to be out. And again, we can definitely, I think, revisit the conversation of, okay, when Brendel's healthy, who should be out there in a couple weeks? That one will be interesting. But Weston, do you have anyone else that you wanted to nominate? Because I don't. And
I have Flowers.
I have Flowers as well. We'll do quick Flowers because we're getting short on time here. We know there's there's 2 Monday Night Football games kicking off. So thank you for joining us at the early window here before these get going. We're going to put the nominees here on the screen. Listen, we got Tatum Bethune, Christian McCaffrey, Bryce Huff, and Matt Hennessy. Weston, I'll let you get started with some Flowers.
I love it. I'm going to go actually Trent Williams. And I'm going Trent Williams. I know that might seem like, and usually when we talk about Trent Williams, we're like glorifying him. But that has not been the case so far in the 2025-2026 season. There have been moments where I'm watching and wondering if he actually wants to be there, especially with like his boy, his hype boy Debo gone, and Kittle out, and your quarterback out, and you know what I mean? Fred Warner out, like the stars. And this man wears a C. Like there's a lot that I expect from Trent Williams, but you used the term in talking about Matt Hennessy just a few seconds ago about looking for work. This is the first time my eyes saw Trent Williams looking for people to block, not just the person that was lined up across from him. I think a prime example is James Pierce, right on that one play where he just, you're talking about damn near the sideline, and Trent Williams is still hanging around and picks that dude up and puts a molly whopping on him when he's coming. Yeah. It was stuff like that, right? Like we knew the weak spot on the defensive line for the Atlanta Falcons is in the interior. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think they led the NFL in sacks as a team coming into this particular game. And for the most part, a relatively clean pocket. I think Trent was credited with a pressure, right? One pressure that he allowed. But I thought he played a really good game against a really young defensive end set, right? Like that might have just relied on like speed beating this guy. But Trent Williams, to me, for the first time this season, looked like Trent Williams. And I think he went out of his way to prove that he is still Trent Williams by, using your term, looking for work multiple times. And I just, that wasn't lost on me because it's something that's just been in the back of my head all season, is like, we've always said, he's the best offensive lineman. I don't know if he's been their best offensive lineman this year in my eyes to this point. Last night, without a doubt, to me, he was their best offensive lineman.
Yeah, that was a good one. I wasn't expecting that one, but I'm always for giving Trent Williams, the big man, some flowers. Yes, I agree. He did look good yesterday. I think, maybe just the rustiness has worn off after 7 weeks for Trent Williams. He's not so young anymore. He's 37, but seeing him do the things that he's doing out there, he's a marvel. All right, so my flowers this week going to go to George Kittle, who ironically didn't even have any catches in this game. But I think you know why George Kittle deserves some flowers in this game. It's because his presence alone, and he played like 81% of the snaps, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken. His presence alone just transformed the 49ers run game. And a few people tweeted out just the impact of Kittle when he was on the field versus not. With Kittle not on the field, McCaffrey had 4 rushes for 3 yards. Kittle on the field, 20 rushes, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wow. Like if you want to quantify someone's impact, you look at those numbers right there. It says a hell of a lot. And the 49ers averaged 1.4 yards per carry before contact with Kittle on the field, ran for 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. Without Kittle, they had 12 yards on 6 carries, average of negative 2.1 yards before contact. Coming into tonight, Niners were 27th in yards before contact with an average of 0.69. Kittle makes their run game go. That was a tweet from KP that he posted earlier. But, you get the point. Like, just the presence of Kittle, it almost made it seem like other guys stepped their game up as well. Like, just suddenly the run game got going when Kittle is back. I just don't think that's much of a coincidence. And, even if he didn't get any catches, he helped open things up for other guys in the pass game as well, as we expected. And Kittle himself did say he was going to be, and they said this on the broadcast, he was going to be violently out of shape coming into this game, which is why he didn't play 100% of the offensive snaps. Yep. But he'll get there. He'll get there, and he'll look more like himself in coming weeks. But even if he's just there and it improves the run game, man, we're going to be happy with that. And that's what we saw on Sunday night.
For everything that Fred Warner is to this football team, as is George Kittle, right? So just like, it's funny how they just, Fred Warner's out. Oh, Kittle comes back. Everything, Steph. The pregame antics to the laughing on the field, the physicality, just the belief in I am better than the man across from me, whatever that means, blocking, receiving, etc. But I am mad at George Kittle because I let myself be fooled in the excitement of him finally coming back that I was like, of course he has to go into my fantasy football lineup. It's George Kittle.
I mean, I'd have done the same.
And now I'm 13. I'm up 13, going against David. It's all these weird things, and this league matters financially all the time, every week. Like it's one of those just high, big impacts, and I let myself get fooled from production from that perspective. But what he does, it's accountability. You have to account for him in every element of the football game, right? Like what he can do as the sixth offensive lineman, arguably, again, your best offensive lineman, what he does for that, just what he means in the passing game. You saw it play out on the big third down conversion to Christian McCaffrey. The linebacker was like, oh, that's George Kittle coming across the field. I have to take one step over. And you just replace, right? The ball just replaced where the defender was and hits McCaffrey wide open. It's things like that. Yeah. George matters.
George matters.
He just matter. Like we've talked about this. We talked about it a lot this offseason, more than in the few years we've been doing this together than we ever had. Like, I don't really think people understand that it's not even close. He is the best tight end in the National Football League because he impacts a game without. Tell me once anybody's ever said, oh, Travis, when Travis Kelce's on the field, they're, yards before contact approved by 3 yards, right? Like, or Brock Bowers or freaking anybody who's played the position in the history of the National Football League. Like, that alone tells you that this guy, who has also multiple occasions held the record for most receiving yards by a tight end in the National Football League and all these accolades. Like, Steph, he's not just the best in the game right now. He probably will hang it up as the best to ever do it. And what we saw last night was the stuff that we know and we talk about and 49er fans know, but the rest of the league just sleeps on that. Like, this guy impacts everything, literally everything.
We had this discussion. Remember, Weston? It was one of our off-season shows, and we talked about is George Kittle on his way to being one of the best ever in the Mount Rushmore of tight ends? And it's easy for us to say. And I think he is impact-wise along there. But
Steph, even the Tony Gonzalez's, the Antonio Gates.
I know. I'm just saying from the national media acknowledgement standpoint, you're not going to get that without the crazy stats. And unfortunately, his value is most needed in the run game more so than, what he brings you in the pass game. And that's crazy because he's also incredible in the pass game when he gets that involvement in, red zone work. If the 49ers offense tailored the offense around him and revolved it around him, just like all the other offenses who had these great tight ends did, then it wouldn't be a discussion. But Kittle is very selfless, and he plays on a team where a lot of people got to get fed. So in the meantime, he's going to open things up for other guys, namely Christian McCaffrey in the run game, who currently has the lead in voting. Actually, now we're tied. Weston,
my family fault. I guess I got to break the tie. No,
I said CMC was up because Landon voted for CMC.
And then my wife, in true fashion, comes right behind and says, Bethune.
What do you got?
I got CMC. It's just hard not to. I really want to lean Bethune. I'm CMC. I will say this, Steph, the last thing that I will say, unless you ask me to say more, I am also do not want to go without overlooking the performance of our boy, Sammy O, from a Flower perspective. Look, 5 pressures. He got his sack. but he was in the backfield. He was disruptive. And again, Bryce Huff goes down. He's going to be relied upon even more. And just another guy on a long list of guys on this roster that is taking full advantage of the opportunity in front of them. So, Sammy O, we've talked about you quite a bit on this show. We see you. Flowers your way, but CMC is my vote.
Quick flowers to Pinheiro again. Perfect another week. Darrell Luter, who filled in for Ronaldo Green, who exited, this game as well. So, the 49ers, doing it without two of their corners for much of this game. I mean, hats off to that. My vote goes to CMC as well, which means he is your 49K player of the week for week 7. I do have a feeling, Weston, there'll be other weeks where Tatum Bethune is nominated and, we'll have his chance to be voted 49K PO dub then. But like I said, can't wait to see the development of him and growth of him throughout the season. It should be pretty exciting to
Steph,
see.
Do you know a t-shirt maker?
Do I know a t-shirt maker?
I feel like we got to get crazy here. Honestly, I'm just spitballing.
Where are you going?
If we can find 10 printed t-shirts that just say 49K player of the week and just mail them 49 Centennial Boulevard with a little sticky note on it. I just feel like this team, the way that this locker room is, my gut tells me one day in this season, we might see somebody wearing that t-shirt at a press conference. I think that'd be pretty cool. Do it.
Or they mail it back signed. I don't know. Yeah. Just a thought. We should. I mean, why not? We should.
That's what I'm doing. I'm in the airport tomorrow because I got to travel for work this week. I'm literally going to be how do we find just 10 printed shirts? And it won't cost us all that much, right, to do it. But I just think that's where we're at with 49K player of the week right now. It's a force to be reckoned with. It matters. Well,
it's funny. I've been thinking of opening up a 49K shop with merch for the podcast. So there you go. We can do this. We're gonna do this. I've got some time in the coming weeks, so we'll start get something going, and 49K shop coming soon.
This roster is like a roster of characters. You know what I mean?
It is.
Come on.
There's a lot to love. There's a lot to love about this team right now, which, even with the injuries is going to keep us engaged. So I definitely appreciate the effort that they're putting forth and, their ability to keep it fun. But speaking of keeping it fun, we had another fun Monday show today. Weston, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks to everyone who joined us before these Monday Night Football games kicked off. We're about to check those out right now. Seahawks playing the Texans. We'll be paying close attention to that one. 49ers play the Texans next week. I'm also going to be rooting for the Seahawks to lose in this game, of course. But in the meantime, make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Not just mine, but Weston's as well. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Monday. Peace.